Hello, 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 Internet, hello, world. Happy Friday. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. Welcome to Coders Live. I'm your host, Sam Basu, and it is Friday, which means, Santosh, the one rule we have for the Friday chat shows is we don't share screen. This is consciously just a chat show.
Oh man, I had an entire slideshow prepared.
No slides. So on the chat show, folks, we like bringing on people who are passionate, folks who we love hanging out with, and none of that's happening in person. So at least we are consciously taking some time to know the people that we love and care about. So with me today, I'm delighted to have my good friend, Santosh Hari. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Sam. Thank you. Thank you for having me on here.
Yeah, welcome. And chat room is getting filled up. Hello, Kevin Evans. Good to see you. Good to see you. It's Friday, so we kind of stretch our legs. And Santosh and me are both big on the developer community, and we see each other a lot, like in the conference realms. And none of that in-person stuff is happening yet. Maybe we're slowly starting to crawl back up. So Santosh and me just sitting down and having a conversation. Look at that. Who's here? Taylor and Code, Mr. Chad. How are you, Mr. Chad Green? We are hanging out here. I don't know about this great guest thing. We'll have to see how Santosh does. I think Chad is just being generous here.
Yeah, exactly. He's too kind.
He is too kind.
Hey, Chad. Nice to see you, man.
Yeah. These are the people we like hanging out with, and at least we're taking some time to hang out here on the internet live. So, Santosh, I've known you for years, but please introduce yourself. Who are you?
Okay, good question. It's a kind of like existential question. Yeah. So, who am I? So, I kind of thought about this. Who am I? So I feel like if you follow me on Twitter, that kind of describes me somewhat. So I call myself a 1x engineer, and that's kind of play on the 10x engineer. I'm not like I'm barely managing to be a 1x engineer during the pandemic. So that's me. Basically, so I think of myself as a kid from the streets of Mumbai, not like as in I grew up in the streets, but I spent a lot of time on the streets, and that's who I think myself was. So I'm just generally a curious person. I just like to explore a lot of things. I am an immigrant to the United States, which is my home now. As for work, these days I work at Microsoft as a consultant, and other things I like to do is I like to watch sports, and I'm just a normal human being, I guess, and how qualitatively you decide to define normal. So.
No, you're being humble. You're an awesome human being. And we have a question here from the chat room following up on what you said. What is the meaning of life, Santosh?
Okay, I'll go back to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I'll say the number 42 and just leave it at
that. Yeah. So, I mean, you're awesome at what you do. And some of the things that you say kind of resonate in how you are in person, in real life as well. Like, you're always inquisitive. You're learning new things. So tell us a little bit more about like what you do at Microsoft and how did you land here?
Yeah. So how did I land here? I'll kind of take that one first, right? So growing up in Mumbai, we didn't really, at least in the late 80s, early 90s, we did not have access to computers. But I kind of got hold of my father, I should say, got hold of a Spectrum computer, and I started on that, Spectrum machine, playing games and writing code in a language called BASIC, which if you're an old timer, you probably know BASIC. If you are a new kid on the block, you probably never heard of BASIC, but that's something that a lot of us old timers like to speak about. I used to write code that would draw lines. I used to type in code from a book, basically, that would draw lines and make sounds. So I learned my debugging, basically writing code, typing in code from the book, and then figuring out if I made typos or if the book was incorrect. So that's my start. As a teenager, I went to a computer exhibition in Mumbai and fell in love with then Windows 95. So that kind of starts my, I guess, love affair with Microsoft. And I worked on a Y2K project. That's kind of my claim to fame. Very few people probably can lay that claim to fame these days, but I like to, say that. And funnily enough, COBOL is still around, which is, I'm surprised to see that. And
you're dating us here, Santosh. Aaron Stanley is saying.
Yeah, it's like carbon dating. It's like you ask which languages you started with, and that's your carbon dating, saying you're 6,000 years old or whatever. So
no, I mean, like, COBOL, like you said, like it's very much around, like for mainframes, and it's very English. Like it's not difficult to pick up. I've done like a year and a half of solid COBOL. It's all good.
So, funnily enough, I'm kind of diverging here, but the other day I read this blog post on why COBOL is still around. And part of it is inertia from the companies, big government organizations and others. They don't want to change, right? That is part of it. But the other part of it is COBOL is the only language that many companies trust for financial calculations because of its floating point arithmetic and how it handles it. None of the modern languages can, Java, C#, you use any of these. None of these can stand up to COBOL when it comes to financial calculations. But, that's a complete
interesting
diverge.
Yeah, interesting. I know the healthcare industry uses a lot of mainframes still. Could be the same reasons. I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know that they want to use mainframes, but because they have systems in COBOL and there is literally no better way to run it than on a mainframe. That's why, those are still around. So
yeah. So what do you do at Microsoft now? Because like right before we went live, you were talking about how you're on calls like all day. So what is it that you do?
Yeah, so yeah, I'm talk to the little box people on the screen all day. But I'm a consultant at Microsoft. I joined Microsoft last year, just as the pandemic was starting. So I have not. Yeah, thank you. I have not met a single team member in real life. Like obviously we are just boxes on the two-dimensional people on the screen. My coworkers are not three-dimensional to me, and I'm not three-dimensional to them. So
yeah, onboarding new people has just taken on a whole other meaning during the pandemic. Yeah,
I was the test subject for Microsoft. so
you help kind of customers be more successful, essentially.
Yeah, so there's no secret that Azure is very important to Microsoft. So my role is mainly helping leveraging the cloud, Azure Cloud and DevOps, and helping companies leverage that to solve their business problems, to take away their mind away from having to maintain all this infrastructure and code, and instead focus on solving the business problems. So that is kind of how I see myself adding value. I help companies on their modernization or digital transformation journey. A lot of buzzwords there, but
a lot of buzzwords here. So like on that front, like when you describe, like do you have a hard time describing what you do to like non-technical folks or family members or kids? Like what is it that you do through the day?
Yeah, so I think about this, it's always good to be able to describe it to a kid, right? So, I thought about how I would describe it to my little nephew, who is like 6 years old right now. So, uh, you know, I would kind of, give him this explanation, how the movers show up on your moving day with big trucks and they move people from one home to another. Similarly, I move companies to this magical place called the cloud.
That's a good way of saying it.
And the only difference is instead of big trucks, I do this by talking to the little people on the screen.
That's a good way of saying it. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so you kind of talked about like how you got started with computers, but do you have like formal education in computer science or in some other field?
Yeah,
How did you
so
start your career? Essentially, is what I'm getting to.
right. So going back to kind of my career, like I was, when I first saw Windows 95, I was starting my, bachelor's in electronics
Oh,
engineering, and
electronics. Okay.
yeah, so that was not related to computers, except that you had a course called microprocessors. So I made a conscious decision that after I graduated, and the Indian education system is funny. Like when you start on a certain path, you cannot change it halfway through. So I had to, finish that, which I really didn't enjoy. I would rather have done computers, but I had to finish that, and then I decided that I would. What I would do is I'd go, interview at these software companies that were popping up in India, and that's how I landed a Y2K job. But then I decided that I would do my master's in computer science,
Oh,
and
interesting.
I moved to the US and did my master's at Florida State University. So that's
Nice,
kind of
nice.
how I ended up. Uh, Whether I have formal education in computer, I would say that it's not necessary. Like for anyone starting on
No, of course. Yeah.
software, I don't think
Yeah.
it's not a requirement. As long as you have the passion and willing to put in the hard work, you should be able to do it. It
Yeah.
just I took the tough route, I guess.
Yeah, no, we talk about this all the time. It's one of the best things about our industry, and as long as you are willing to learn and you can think straight, you can pick up and be very good at what you do. So, like with an electronics background, like are you into hardware at all, or is just not something you want to get into?
No, I have really not taken the time to go into hardware. That is something that I thought about, but then I look at it and I was like, I think I've been scarred for life because because
Yeah,
I spent years trying to get through something that I hated. So I guess I've been kind of scarred for life. So I try to avoid it. Although if you need soldering or something, I could do that because I'm professionally trained to do that. So
hmm
yeah,
yeah.
so.
So, like your formal job is kind of one part of what you do, but most of us out in the community know you for what you do. For the developer community, you run a massive user group, massive
Mhm.
conferences. So, how did you get started in the dev community, and what all do you do?
So, how did I get started in the dev community? I'm going back to, I always used to attend the Orlando.NET user group and Orlando Code Camp. And then, one year I decided that, hey, I'm not just happy, attending this. I'd like to be a participant. So I decided to speak at Orlando Code Camp. And that kind of gave me an insight into how these people were working hard to put together this event and how much fun it was. So I joined the Orlando.NET user group and became actually one of the organizers of the Orlando Code Camp, which is it's been an awesome experience. Um, oh, that's Christos. Hey, Christos.
I'm trying to find the one .NET one
Yeah.
tug is what you call it, right? I'm trying to find your
Yeah,
homepage so I
one
can
tag is Orlando.NET user group, so we call it
Okay.
one tag. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Now I'm trying to find your conference, but yeah, maybe if you get a
yeah.
second, just drop a link. And yeah, Christoph, hey, good to see you, another fellow streamer. What are we talking about? Oh, you're in for a surprise here. Not .NET. We're talking about people. It's Friday, so we are consciously choosing to not share any screens. We are simply chatting because these are the people that we like to hang out with, and we cannot right now. So we are just chatting about
I
life,
know,
career,
I
and
know, Chris. I know. I was,
uh,
I had like a presentation prepared to talk about, Cosmos DB and feature flags and other things like that, and Sam won't let me do it. So,
no.
so
But
you have to.
yes, Santosh is in the house, but he's not talking tech. He's talking about himself. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So you
So
started speaking.
I've been organizing Orlando Code Camp until last year when we had to cancel it for the pandemic.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
I have been to the Code Camp several times. It's a wonderfully put together event. So kudos to all that you and the community do together.
thank you, sir.
Yeah. So do you take like comfort in the fact that you have this group of people that you network with, folks who are local, who are equally invested, and they want to learn and share? Like, what's your thoughts on the dev community and what you have gained and what you give to maintain the things that you do?
Yeah. So, I'm always thankful for having this group of people, which until last year we could meet in person and, just hang out, talk tech, which, I have a large group of friends outside of this, but talking, my passion, which is, technology and, .NET and Azure, all of those, it's tough when people don't belong to that field, right? So I find it really comforting when I can, go to, the user group meeting or the code camp or, any of the conferences, and we kind of hang out. The best, session at the conferences and the code camp is the hallway track, right? Like when you meet people and you
Yeah.
get to socialize. To me, that's one of the important parts that's kind of been, taken away from us. But hopefully we'll get back to that
Yeah,
sometime.
we're slowly crawling back. In fact, my first in-person conference is actually going to be in your ballpark in Orlando. We are doing Dev Intersection in June, which
Mhm.
will be interesting how we do it. But we are slowly crawling back out of this, hopefully.
Well, I will see you at Dev Intersection then because I'm speaking too.
Okay. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
nice. I think I saw you. Yeah. So, given what you do at Microsoft and just in general, like, what would you say is some of the most exciting parts of what you do, and what are some of your challenges?
What are some of the exciting parts of what I do? So, um, my thing is that I, I like to make things easy for my customers. So I know as a consultant, I basically have a job that I have to deal with customers on a day in and day out basis, and uh, my I get joy out of making things easy for them. So things like that people just take for granted, just check your code in here and hey, here it is deployed on the servers, or just push this button and there's a brand new uh, environment for you. So I take joy in kind of being that layer of abstraction that helps take away the hard monotonous part of their work and make it easy for them to focus on solving what they should be solving for their company to succeed.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, it's all secure, which is always a
No, that's a good way of putting it. Making things simple, because I mean we have plenty of complexity, anyways. And I particularly like what you do with in the DevOps space. Like I've heard you speak about like feature flags and making deployments easier for customers. All of those things are like I feel like DevOps has in the last like couple of years come a lot more closer to developers than it has in the past, and that's a good thing. We need to care about how we deploy our apps and how the CI/CD pipelines look like. So yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things, right? I mean, DevOps is again, it's just a buzzword, right? I mean, you can say that that's for developer and operations, but what about database people? What about
Mhm.
security people? And what about networking people? You can kind of argue that they are either part of Dev or Ops, but
Yeah.
we want to make sure that what we are doing is the people who work at companies that develop line of business apps, they should be focusing on the line of business apps. They should not be focusing on this minutiae of I have to right click and deploy it and everything blows up. That's not what they should be doing. They should have they should be writing code that they have like 8 hours a day, and of that 4 to 5 hours are spent basically in meetings these days, right? So they have 3 hours to do some impactful work. And what we want to do is make sure that the impactful work they're doing, they're focusing on that and not on other things. That's how I see it. So whether you call it DevOps, whether you call it no code, no code is another interesting area that I've seen coming up. It's, to me, that's really appealing because you take all these subject matter experts. So someone will be an expert in, let's say, looking at the census numbers, right? So what we do is we simply provide them some kind of way to, take the area of expertise without writing code. They can present some data to the audience. So again, all of these basically, my vision is that every one of us is simply an abstraction layer that helps people.
Yeah, well said. So let me maybe ask about some of the challenges in the way you do things. So given the pandemic, like how has your work as a consultant, or how has your developer community have to like pivot to kind of do everything offline? Like what are some adjustments you've had to make?
Okay, so my work as a consultant has actually, I would say it has been more impactful. Like previously, as a consultant, I had to travel a lot to customer sites when we could have been, it could have been an email, right, instead of me traveling. So, uh, just being, at home and not having to spend a lot of time on the road, or having to meet people face to face instead of emailing or having video calls. I think it's definitely helped a lot. A lot of companies discovered that they really didn't need people face to face for many functions. In fact,
Yeah.
almost all functions. So I'd say that has helped me a lot at work, because Microsoft's whole focus is building tools for developer productivity, remote work, and other things, and it just fit in like a glove.
Yeah.
But you asked about the developer community, so that's been a little bit more challenging. I'd say last year, just as the pandemic started, March, I had to cancel code camps, which was at the end of March. That was a tough decision. So I kind of went into a funk, and we didn't really do much last year. So, in a way, I feel like at some level, there was some kind of, uh, I guess, failure. But, I guess I should not see it that way, but it just, you can't help thinking about it. The one thing, I did not really adapt well to the existential dread. But I think one of the great items that has come out of the pandemic, and I shouldn't put it that way. It's probably one of the bright spots, right, or a silver lining. So is that we can get really talented speakers for our user groups from all over. We are not restricted geographically.
Right.
For instance,
Right. Yeah.
last night we had in our user group, we had Jeremy Sinclair. He lives in West Virginia. There's no way he would be speaking at a one-tug meetup, but here he is last night talking about how to deploy Windows Forms and WPF apps to ARM devices.
ARM.
So
Yeah.
it's been it's starting to I guess we're starting to adapt better.
Yeah.
So that's always good.
Yeah, I think that's kind of been the story with every developer community. We have all had to adapt and kind of change the way we do things. And then the silver lining is really just access to anybody from all around the world. And I guess we are all learning to do things better, much more virtually. Now, before even like any of this started, like I think if I remember right, your group used to stream the user group meetups. Is that right?
Yeah, so we started streaming. So this was inspired by Mr. Jeff Fritz. We decided to start streaming our user group meetups. So even having meetups live was not a it was not a big switch. It's just that we wallowed in self-pity for a while because some of our events had to be canceled. So.
Yeah, and yeah, Chad's saying it's a challenge no matter where you are, because you are limited to geographically your region of speakers, and now you really have opened it up to anybody that you can get. And like we are seeing, like with the future of work, it's not going to be the same. Like we have all learned that a lot more things can be done virtually, and probably better than what we have been doing in person. So while we all want to get back to some form of normalcy, it's going to look different, and perhaps we're going to be more efficient that way. So yeah. Let's get back to tech and talk about maybe like you deal with a lot of tech. You're kind of you have your head in the cloud all through the day. You deal with a lot of Azure and DevOps. But if I ask you, like, what is, like, in the last like few months, like, what is the real like a really cool piece of technology that you see and you feel very passionate about?
So I guess in the last few months, let me ask you this question: are you talking about a physical piece of technology, or are you talking
No,
about
just in general, like whatever technology you got, software, yeah.
So, so I think in the last few months, so before the pandemic started, I used to use all these, video conferencing tools like Zoom and Teams and other things. But I feel like in the last year, they have really picked up their game, both Zoom and Teams and others. And you
Everybody.
can do things like and they made it really easy to do things. Not that they couldn't before, but breakout rooms and cool backgrounds and recording, spotlighting features, speakers, and so on. So even though it's not necessarily newish, I feel like that's something that has really picked up in the last year and become far more impactful. In fact, I would say that the world would not be functioning as it is today without these tools.
No, of course, yeah, and the investments and the innovations have been just phenomenal. Like I was talking to somebody at Microsoft on some of the internal workings of Teams and how that had to be ramped up. And in fact, we have Chad in the house if he's still around. Chad did a talk for our user group on Azure Communication Services, which is using a lot of the backbone that Teams uses. So we are kind of democratizing some of this tech out for other applications and customers to use. So yeah, that's been quite a silver lining.
Yeah, and the other thing I'm excited about is again, I mentioned this earlier, but the whole area of no-code technologies, like Power Apps and other things, and I feel like there's this whole section of the population that is some kind of subject matter expert in areas other than computers, and we are helping these people actually leverage their skills and bring whatever their expertise is to the forefront by using these no code / low code tools. So that's something that I'm really excited about.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, when I ask you about your favorite, like, or passionate, your passion for technology, you also mentioned hardware. So let me come back to that. Like, what is like a really cool piece of hardware that you own, or something that you're excited to own, or something that you are just looking forward to?
Believe it or not, I'm kind of a Luddite when it comes to hardware, in that I'm not big on material positions, so I don't buy a lot of electronics, anything like that. But there are things I love that are really impactful. Obviously, if anyone is saying that their smartphone is not their most treasured tech gadget, then they would kind of be wrong, because everyone uses the smartphone. But I also love these Surface headphones, because I can have meetings and walk around and listen to music, or have do talks and stuff. I love my Surface earbuds, which are awesome for exercising. So just pop them into the ear, play things over your headphones, and simply just walk around. So it's not really an electronic device, but I switched cars, and I got one of those ones that actually do the accident collision detection and other things like that. So I'm and auto parking and stuff. So I'm excited about that, because I feel like people are more distracted these days, and having technology to assist. I don't want like a self-driving car, because I don't trust them yet. But you know, driver assist, I can kind of be on board with that, especially collision detection and stuff. So
Yeah. No, that's all well said. Like with the pandemic, like with everybody switching to work from home and like having kids, and like my wife is a college professor, so like we are all on the internet just doing our stuff through the day. The noise cancellation stuff really helps because it kind of tunes out whatever else you have going on and just
right.
lets you focus. Yeah.
Oh, and I should also mention, I actually, recently bought the what do you call it? The Amplify Alien router.
Oh
So
yeah.
that has been, I have like 400 Mbps, but really like connection at home, but really poor coverage throughout the home, because the walls
Mm,
and, it's two-storied, odd L-shaped house and stuff. So, having a couple of Amplify Aliens
yeah. I've
on my
heard good
house,
things
and
about it. Yeah.
yeah, I can sit in my backyard under the gazebo, and I can have a call, and I can
Nice.
do that because I live in Florida, and it's sunny, 12 years.
Yeah, until like a storm hits, which like I remember like funny tweets from you that said like move to Florida, it'll be so much fun, they said, and then you have to shovel like sandbags and kind of lock down things when you get hit with like little cyclones, yeah,
you know,
hurricanes.
at least you see those
Uh,
coming, right?
yeah, at least yeah. Cool. Yeah, and the whole like self-driving thing is just a whole other, like we can spend like hours talking about it, but like you have to appreciate that folks are at least starting to push the envelope. Like some of the autopilot things like lane departure and collision detection, those things are done. I mean, those are very, very good.
Hmm.
But the rest of it is just hard. Like you said, like it's software that's running it and mimicking how the human brain processes things and all the different types of rules, and it is just a lot. So early days, but at least folks are trying.
So I'll put it this way, I will trust self-driving cars the day people don't fool the day I'm convinced that people cannot fool these cars by drawing, lines on the road in a weird format. So, that maybe I'll start to trust them more. But until then, you always have to assume that someone is going to act in bad faith, and you have
Yeah,
to you have to
yeah,
not.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is like this is not meant to be used in some of the videos that we see where people are falling asleep. And so, I mean, as long as you can take control at less than a second's notice, like you're right there to
mhm.
help with the key decisions. Like just going straight on a highway, that's done. That's not very difficult. It is the trickier parts that are difficult, like exits and going through around the town. That's
Mhm.
the difficult part. So yeah, we're getting there. We'll see how much confidence we have. Early days. Yeah. So tell us about Santosh outside of just work and tech. What do you do outside of work?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, like I'm a huge sports fan, so
Mm,
sports ball, but I like all kinds of sports, like whether it be India's cricket team, or whether it be
mm,
various American football teams. I love my alma mater, Florida State's football team, even though they're not doing well these days. But it's always great to hang out with friends and watch those games. I have two young Boston Terriers, so if I don't keep them busy, they'll destroy the house. So I train them. So I train them every weekend. Like I take them to training. Nothing fancy, they can do a few tricks, and sometimes they decide that they'll listen to me, but nothing fancy. Because I live in Florida, I keep coming back to this, but the beach is always an option. So we'll just pack up some random weekend and go to the beach, or I may just decide to do a working week from the beach, and
yeah.
that's always good. During non-COVID times, is to hang out at various amusement parks, in particular at Disney's Star Wars Edge of the Galaxy attraction, which was
Mm,
pretty awesome. So hopefully, we'll be at a time where we can go back to those things, but that time is not right
mm.
now.
No. No, I mean Orlando and the whole like area is just so good with amusement parks. And our kid is 5. We have not taken him to Disney yet, but I think it's time. So once we are out of this, we'll get into Disney mode. Yeah, there's just so much to take in, and then not just for kids. Like I mean, you and me will enjoy all of the rides and all of the stuff that's on offer.
Yeah, I mean, I highly recommend, the Disney Hollywood Studio. Go to the Star Wars Edge
Yeah.
of the Galaxy. Just leave time for that if you're going to
Yeah,
Disney.
absolutely. And speaking of sports, like, so you and me are both born and brought up in India, and you mentioned something which is like so key to the way maybe how our brains kind of take on new stuff. So I love cricket as well. I grew up playing a lot of cricket, like even at the state level, and I'm completely into American football. It's just baseball is just too close to cricket. I just never have gotten into baseball.
Yeah,
It's
not
just
my favorite.
maybe. Yeah,
I'll
just
watch
not
I'll
our
watch
thing.
the World Series because it's always the World Series. It's the big thing. Even,
Mm.
but I'm not like I wouldn't watch like regular season
Yeah,
baseball
yeah,
for anything.
yeah.
The
Me
playoffs are
too.
good.
Me too. Me too. What about food? Are you a foodie? Do you cook? What's your favorite cuisine?
Yeah, so I'm a absolute foodie. So I will eat. The way I put this is, people ask me, "What do you eat?" I'll say I'll eat anything as long as it's not moving. So, so
Hey, leaves move in the wind. Yeah,
well,
I see what you're saying.
as long
Yeah,
as long as it's not voluntarily moving, right?
right.
So,
That's right. That's a good way of
but
putting it.
at the end of the day, I kind of go back to what my comfort food is. Like, I was my family is from the southern part of India, so the South Indian food, like with masala dosa, which is kind of like a crepe
Mhm.
with
Yeah.
spicy potatoes in it, with sambar, which is kind of like a gravy, and coconut chutney. Oh man, now I'm hungry.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. But
Yeah, good
speaking
stuff.
of food, I also have a campaign on Twitter that says chicken tikka masala is not Indian food. So if you follow me on Twitter, you'll
It is
find
not,
out.
and Santosh's Twitter is right there by his
Yeah,
name. But no, it is not actually. It was it's a UK contribution to maybe popularizing Indian food. Yeah.
exactly. And I have kind of decided to become an activist for this on Twitter.
Yeah, yeah. Take keep the good fight going, maybe. But let me ask you this. So, yeah, the pandemic. So, in the first half of the pandemic, like we are
Mhm.
all stressed. Like I must have put on like quite a bit of pounds, right? And then it kind of hit me like this is not good, and I have kind of done a complete flip now. I'm very conscious of what I'm eating. I'm working out a whole lot more, so
Mhm.
I'm very conscious about like protein intake. Do you worry about being a vegetarian? Like, are you vegan or just vegetarian?
No, I'm neither actually. I grew up a vegetarian, but right now I call myself eatitarian in that I will, like I said, eat anything. So
Yeah.
I kind of decided to when I moved to the US, I decided to change, or I decided to kind of experiment with everything. So I will eat any kind of cuisine, and I'll try any kind of cuisine.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you have so much of like lentils, so much of grains, so much that
Mhm.
can give you the protein. It's just not always like handy and not as easy to just get from a fast food store as it might be.
Right, right. And one of my favorite food is, of course, lentils. And you just put it in the cooker and it's done, and you can
Yeah,
just eat it, and it's pretty low calorie and stuff. So it's always great.
yeah, yeah, it is. All right, so this may be a trick question, but if you had $1 million right
Yeah.
now, what
Mhm.
would you do?
Okay, good question. So I'm thinking, there's probably two answers to this. One is kind of the selfish one, in which I'd pay off my loans and mortgages and maybe
Sure.
use part of that money to start up, do a startup or something.
Oh, interesting.
That's that's the most selfish one, but the most more altruistic one, and I think in real life it would probably be a mixture of these two. I would probably donate that to social causes like voting rights and Black Lives Matter. stopping and Asian hate crimes, trans rights and other things like that.
Yeah, no, that's very altruistic of you. But when you say like you would maybe start a startup, like what would you start the startup on?
Okay, so I used to do startups, for a good part of my middle part of the career. So
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Before I became a consultant, I used to do startups. I was really big into the radio spectrum arena. So, in my last startup, we actually deployed a bunch of networks in Mexico to provide wireless, connectivity to people living in parts of Mexico that was kind of out of reach for them. Like they would not have big companies put lay out cables. So we use wireless technologies like Ubiquity, routers, and huge Ubiquity antennas to do point to point internet, and then distribute that to cluster of homes. So I was really passionate about that, but unfortunately it did not work out from a business model perspective. So I would kind of take some of my learnings from that and go somewhere along that, because people still need internet. Like if you look.
So I mean, it's not just your formal education. You do actually have some experience with like hardware, like that. That's clearly a startup that needs a lot of like hardware to do what it's doing.
Yeah. It was awesome because I got like in my electronics, I had learned quite a bit about digital communication over radio spectrum, all the frequencies, and power versus frequency ratio, and how you can take a high frequency. And you can have more bandwidth, but it'll travel shorter distances when a low frequency would travel longer distances. So all of that, comes from formal education. So one thing I'll say is, I do believe that I'm probably jumping ahead to some other things you want to discuss, but people,
No, we're just here to chat. Yeah, you're fine.
there's a lot of things about whether you need a formal education or not. I personally don't think you need a formal education to, be a computer programmer. But I'll say that anything you learn is never wasted. So, when we did this thing with frequencies, I actually applied some of the trigonometry I learned in, middle school, high school, to lay out how these frequencies would look on a map. So you never learn anything that's wasted. So
No, absolutely. No, well said. No, that is very interesting. I didn't know that you did any of that work. That is a very interesting startup idea, and I'm sure like the need is just going to keep on growing. So
yeah, I think there's a couple of things, right, with startups. There's the technology part, and then there's the business and people part. So I felt like we succeeded at the technology part, but we failed at the making money part.
yeah, and that is very tricky with all the venture capital or however it is that you're bringing the funds in. It's like it's a race down to the bottom, and it's difficult because I mean, delivering innovation when you're faced with tight deadlines is just difficult.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think there's a misalignment of incentives over there. Like if you're delivering innovations, innovations can take years, if not decades, to happen. So
it's true.
Yeah.
All right, Santosh. Give us maybe some of your like parting thoughts. Like, what are you excited about in life, like right now or in the next 1 year? Where do you draw inspiration from, and how do you see your career and your life move forward from here?
Oh man, that's a lot of existential questions again. So what am I excited about? I'm excited about meeting people again. Like I'm hoping that we get to people get to meet each other and not kill each other with deadly diseases. That would be That would be really exciting, really not like to die of a deadly disease. But things that excite me, actually, once the pandemic started, I realized how much I'd forgotten, how I missed the little things like, fresh air, taking a walk, drinking plenty of water, exercising and stuff like that. So I feel like, we kind of took all those things for granted, and this has kind of hit the reset button on that one. So, that is something that what's the other question? I forgot.
like tech-wise, career-wise, what are some things you're looking forward to?
Yeah, so tech-wise, career-wise, I think, again, I feel like I'm one of those people that will be like, retiring, and I still don't know what I want to do with my career. But one thing that has always helped me is, I like helping people. So, in whatever I do, I can kind of think of it like, if I can, as long as I'm able to frame it in a way where it comes across as doing something useful and helping people, I think I'll be happy with that. I'm like I said, there's no I don't see a path saying that, oh, I would like to be an executive at Microsoft. I don't see a path like that. I just want to help people. So whatever it takes. And you also asked, for what it, pushes me, or what.
What inspires you?
Yeah. So what inspires me? That's a good way to put it. So one of the most inspirational things I've seen is in quotes I have came across was in a movie. That's actually one of my favorite movies, The Martian. In the end, it says that, you at some point, basically everything is going to go south, and you're basically going to say, this is it, this is how I end. Now, you can either accept that, or you can, get back to work, solve one problem at a time. And if you solve enough problems, then you get to come home. So that's kind of a quote that always inspires me, because, as in our field, things are always going wrong. So
Yeah, that is well said. Well said. And I will say again, knowing you for years, you do live and breathe some of the things that you say. Like, you genuinely like helping people, and how you work and how you are in the dev community, and it clearly shows that you enjoy what you do and you genuinely like helping people. So, thank you for what you do, and thank you for taking an hour or so of your busy morning to just come and hang out with me, because I got nothing else to do. Actually, no, that's not entirely true. Today, Santosh is the last one standing between me and my second vaccine shot, which is coming up.
Oh man, that's exciting! That's exciting.
So I gotta go run.
Yeah, go get your vaccine shot.
Man. No, I'm good. But looks like both you and me are on for Dev Intersection in June.
Right. Assuming things still move forward, then most likely we'll be seeing each other at Dev Intersection, obviously with masks
and doing like elbow bumps, but at least we'll see each other. Yeah, there you go.
That's true. That's true. All right, fellow vaccinated person, I look forward to seeing you.
Yeah. So in the chat room, Kevin, Chris, let's see, Aaron and Chad, thank you for hanging out with us. It's Friday. We're not done here with streams on this channel, though. I think my good friend Alyssa does a UI Friday, which comes up later on in the afternoon. But come and hang out with us whenever you have time. And until the next stream, I hope everybody is safe and healthy and trying to be as productive and happy as we can. That's all we can do. So, Santosh, one more time. Oh, and Aaron, thanks. I haven't gotten it yet, but I'm going to get it. But thank you, Chad. It's always good to hang out with all of you, which we are missing out in person. But we are slowly crawling out of this, like I've said. So we shall see. Fingers crossed. So thank you for what you do, Santosh. Thanks for taking the time out, and peace out.
Thanks for having me, Sam. It's fantastic, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, absolutely. So until the next stream, folks, take it easy, and we shall see you on the internet somewhere else. Okay. All right. Bye for now. Yep.
Bye.